Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Hope everyone is doing well. Just poured myself a drink here. This is a really cool mug, by the way. Isn't that really neat? Yeah, I got it from my parish, actually. Got a bunch of old items that were in the basement that we were giving away, or you could donate and take one. And they had these mugs from the 50th anniversary of the parish, I believe. Um, yeah, it's really cool. It's a really nice piece of history from my church, and it's a pretty cool mug to drink out of. So, wrong way, wrong way. Yeah, check that out. Sweet. Yeah, I'll give this a few minutes, see if anybody comes in. I did make a post earlier saying that I was going to go live here at about 8 o'clock. Hey, thumbs up. Hello. All right, we'll give everyone a few more minutes here to come in if anybody is. We'll see. Hello, hey, how you doing tonight? Feel free to leave a comment or excuse me, a chat if there's anything specifically anyone watching would like to talk about. I have a few things I'd like to go over. This is going to be just about a half an hour live stream. But hey, mate, a fellow child of the Western cultural tradition, last independent thinker. Hello, last independent thinker. Hope you're having a great night. Is there anything that you would actually like me to discuss or talk about in this live stream? Feel free to let me know. That'd be fantastic. As I mentioned, I do have a couple things I would like to just go over, talk about a little bit. One of those is this complete and total schism within the Republican Party that's currently taking place here in the United States after the death of Charlie Kirk and the complete mess that seems to be. And I think the people that want to hold it together to preserve, I guess, boomer American conservatism have really no idea why it's happening in the first place. And every single thing they're doing is actually making it worse. I think the TPUSA event that just took place the other day, for sure didn't help things at all. I don't think Ben Shapiro did himself any favors on that one, but something like this was a long time coming. This was always a festering issue within the Republican Party that was always going to rear its head. It was just a matter of time. Momentum had been building for years over the Israel issue, and how much money Israel is receiving, and the impact of AIPAC as a foreign lobby in the United States, and how do you reconcile something that's supposed to be America first with something that concerns the interests of a foreign power, seemingly over all else, including America's best interests around the world. How do you reconcile those two things? Well, I don't think you can. It was always a matter of time before this became a pretty serious issue. I think the Israel lobby overplayed their hand in regards to maintaining their influence in the United States. I think had they not been as heavy-handed as they have been and as reactionary as they have been, then they probably would have maintained a comfortable level of influence within the country that would probably have gone, I don't want to say relatively unnoticed, but it wouldn't have been seen as something quite as provocative as it is now. But it's human nature, unfortunately. I think everybody gets complacent and a little carried away when they're comfortable with something they have and they assume it's never going to go away. And I think that's what I think the Israel lobby took their support for granted. I don't want to go over that too much in this video. And then you have Vivek Ramaswamy running for governor of Ohio, state which I live in. And now, unfortunately, we have to choose between a guy who says that your heritage as an American literally doesn't matter. This country's just an idea. And you have him versus like a COVID lockdown leftist. That's a great choice. Really looking forward to that election. It's really interesting too. Is my family has been in Appalachia for generations. Like my wife's family's from West Virginia. We're all Scots, Irish, and German. But we've been in this region of the country for quite some time. I have quite a few members of my own family that have fought in various American conflicts, the American Civil War. My great uncle was actually captured during the Battle of the Bulge and spent time in a POW camp before being liberated at the end of World War II. So my family has been over here for quite some time, and they're very invested in American history. And we've been on this land for a long time. Like the piece of land I live on has been in my family for the last 80 years or more. You know, we kind of all live on this same little plot of land, and you know that's something that we've all worked for. We've worked to maintain. We've tried to pass down what we have to generations down the line. To kind of, you know, keep our family here and keep our family in the same community, you know, and to hear somebody say that, oh, well, none of that really matters. We're all just Americans because of ideas we have. So if you just show up here with no investment in our history and our, you know, your local community, then, you know, you're as American as everybody else. No, you have to earn your place. I'm not saying that somebody can't immigrate here and eventually assimilate and become an American through, you know, giving their time, blood, sweat, and tears, you know, dedicating to this country, like serving in the army or really becoming a crucial part of their community. It absolutely can't happen. I'm not somebody who uses that term, well, we're just a nation of immigrants, because I think that's often used to reinforce the position that Vivek seems to have on what an American is. But, you know, at the same time, if you do immigrate to a country, it is expected that you will dedicate yourself to that country. You'll do some kind of service for it, and in reward, you'll get acceptance. And it might take a long time. It might take, you know, a generation or so, but eventually you can assimilate into that society. But it's not something that you just walk into and say, "Hey, I'm a member here. Hello, I'm benefiting from everyone else's hard work and, you know, dedication." I'm one of you now. Hello. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that in any country, and it frankly shouldn't work like that in any country, because that is how you get your society taken advantage of. Okay, I like that reply. They are a nation of immigrants. Are you referring to they are a nation of immigrants? I am from a nation of nation builders. What are you referring to when you say they are a nation of immigrants? Just curious. But yeah, we did build a nation. I mean, people didn't immigrate to this country, but they built it. They didn't just build it so other people could come here and say, "Hey, hi, this is mine now. I get to be part of it. Hello, everybody." You know, it doesn't quite work like that. Like I said, I feel like people need to earn their place wherever they go, and that's a good defense mechanism to maintain the integrity of your society. And I think what Vivek is promoting is becoming. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. That is a good response. Nation builder is not just a nation of immigrants. That's right, because people worked hard to turn this nation into what it is. I know there were quite a few Irish and Scottish, I think Irish and Scottish immigrants that were drafted into the Union Army during the Civil War, and, you know, just to face down grape shot and 50 caliber musket balls. I mean, they suffered pretty horrifically as borderline cannon fodder in many occasions. They didn't just come here and open up a 7-Eleven and say, "Hey, hello, my fellow Americans." It doesn't work like that. You need to sacrifice if you're going to be part of something. You need to participate. You need to offer something that is useful, I would say. And to get back to what Vivek was saying, that position is becoming increasingly unpopular in a country that is losing its historical and cultural identities, that people are becoming more confused about what it is to be an American. What language do you speak? Like, what cultural background do you come from? What religion are you? Like, what defines you as an American? Oh, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in representative government. I believe in free speech. Therefore, I'm an American. Well, we're not the only country that has people that believe in those things. Now, granted, I think America probably has the most flushed out and effective constitution when it comes to maintaining those things. And I say that because out of all the Western countries, I'd say America has degraded the least in regards to maintaining those things, but I'm not saying that'll last forever. But, if you look at like the UK or France, for example, or Germany, they could have really benefited from having a robust constitution. But again, that doesn't make a country. France's constitution doesn't constitute France. That doesn't define what it is to be French. That doesn't define what it is to be German. That doesn't define what it is to be, British. There is a history that defines your identity. And if you are a newcomer to that country, you have to integrate yourself into that history and make sacrifices to give back to the opportunity that you are given. This is another example too. There's a lot of people that think it's a great idea to move to Russia because Russia is a more traditional country. Well, I think some of those people are in for a rude awakening because Russia now requires, I'm pretty sure, people that wish to receive citizenship, I think they've actually required a lot of them to join the military. They have to actually bleed for Russia if they want citizenship. There was somebody that moved there as an American. He's an American veteran, and he was actually just called up to sign up for the Russian army, I think as a reservist. And well, he had to do it. If he wanted to be a citizen of that country, that was the requirement. He has to make a physical sacrifice if he's eventually going to be accepted by them. And frankly, I think that's how it absolutely should be. Like, if you are going to be part of that national identity, it's not just a part of it is, sure, a series, beliefs about certain things, or traditional values on certain issues that is part of the identity, but it's more than that. It's not just, I think that what Vivek is promoting is kind of nihilism, like nothing really means anything. There is no identity. Everything is just a blank slate. You are just whatever you say you are. I think it's almost like transnationalism, I guess you could say. It's like, well, I identify as an Indian now. I'm going to move to Delhi and tell everybody I'm an Indian now, and you have no say in the matter. Hi, fellow Indians. Like, it doesn't work like that. And, I think a lot of young conservative Americans see that as like that kind of an idea as something that doesn't preserve anything at all. Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, he's trying to write himself into U.S. history. That's a good point. But Claudia, get off the table. What are you doing? Leave those Christmas presents alone. Anywho, yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that the issue with Vivek, though, is obviously what I've talked about. That that's one of my biggest issues with him. But as far as running for governor of Ohio too, like, it could have been anybody else. This is a pretty solid red state at this point, and Vivek is actually behind in some polls, which it shouldn't even be a close race at all. That's how unpopular Vivek is. Like, nobody really sees him as an Ohioan. They see him as like an outsider. That hasn't really invested in the state, that's done nothing, and nobody really, like, he's not somebody from like a small town who grew up in this state. Like, he's not thought of as somebody like that. And if you would have had a conservative candidate who's firmly invested in Ohio and has been an American all their life and has been in this country for quite some time, then it wouldn't have been a close contest at all. Like, it's just not it's a losing. This idea that America is simply just a series of ideals is a losing argument now on the conservative side. And it seems like people like Shapiro and Vivek and whatnot, they're pushing back against that as hard as it can. My cat's losing her mind, for their own benefit, but it seems to be just a losing battle for the Republican Party. And I think even if that is Vivek's opinion, he shouldn't even say anything about it. Just leave it alone. Keep it to yourself and stick to whatever issues Ohioans are facing, and leave that alone. You're not going to stem the tide of opinion within the right wing towards something more akin to like paleoconservatism. It's swinging in that direction because they see the traditional Republican establishment as completely useless. They're useless in defeat. They are completely useless in victory. And the only reason they seem to win elections is because the Democrats are that much worse. And I think they're complacent because of that. Their opposition is so bad that they don't really even have to try to win elections like they should. And they are lazy and complacent when they get into office. They don't think they have to wield any kind of state power to maintain the viability of their policies. once they leave office, they just think that, I guess, boomer conservatism is good enough, and they can just preach that forever and just win elections against the woke left, or whatever they want to call it. And as more Americans have trouble paying for their mortgages, or finding decent jobs, or they see billions going overseas, while people down the street are dying of fentanyl overdoses, and the roads are falling apart and their infrastructure is falling apart. They start to care less and less about like boomer talking points like the woke left and socialism and all this other stuff. They're not going to care. They want results. And if the Republican Party can't provide results, they'll move on to somebody else, or they'll just stay home and watch the whole thing burn down, because they're just frustrated and tired of it at this point. Look at the Epstein files. One of the biggest mistakes the Republican Party made was promising the world when it came to the Epstein files. There are so many powerful people tied up in that they are scared shitless of releasing the unredacted files, because it'll burn the entire government down, and they know it. They should have been smart enough beforehand to know that's exactly what they were risking. They never should have made the promises they were making, because now they look even more useless. Oh, you said you were going to expose corruption and let us know what was in the Epstein files and release it all, and fix all these, get rid of all the pedophiles. And well, they get in the office and they don't again, and like that just hammers home the fact that they are a useless party, and people like Shapiro and Vivek aren't helping them an image at all by just sticking with old boomer conservative talking points. And I don't really have a lot of hope in the midterms. I think they're probably going to lose a lot of seats, and it's their own fault if they do. I think JD Vance is smart enough to successfully run for president in 2028. I think he really could win. I think he's savvy enough. He's smart enough. But will it even matter at that point if it's still the same old Republican Party? Probably not. But who knows? So, hey, last independent thinker, just meant to ask you, are you from the United States? What country are you from? You don't have to dox yourself, but just curious here. If you're still out there, please let me know in the comment section where you're from. Oh, nice, cool. Hey, so what is your opinion about the state of Australia? You don't have to. I'm not going to sit there and have a full-on conversation with you in the comment section, but just in comparison to the United States and like what I'm describing, what do you feel like Australia is much further along down the road? What do you think? Because I know things are pretty bad down there. With it is hot here, and a semi area. Oh yeah, I know it's hot, but no, I mean like the future of Australia insofar as preserving like Western cultural tradition. Do you think the trajectory's pretty bad? Do you think there's some hope for the future? And good evening, APK P3Z. How are you? Hope you're having a good night. Welcome to my live stream. If there's anything you would like to talk about, please leave a reply, and we'll bring it up and we can talk about it. Oh yeah, of course. That was a given. I knew they were going to do that as soon as the shooting happened. That's the go-to solution for everything. Yes, we have a nihilistic society filled with murderous people and political extremism and religious conflict, and well, there's other reasons why that shooting happened. But yeah, let's just take all the guns away. Let's just double down on everything. Let's not actually address the reasons that these violence occurs. Let's just disarm everyone even further. Let's get rid of the kitchen knives. Let's get rid of the butter knives. Let's get rid of the guns. Let's wrap everything in bubble tape. So even though our people are at each other's throats, let's just not do anything to fix it and just disarm them. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I know most Western countries don't actually have like a First Amendment, at least in the same way that the United States does, and I think that's what hurts the United Kingdom, Australia, like France and Germany. I don't think Free speech in any of those countries is actually a guaranteed right, which is why they're very loose with their definition of free speech. It's really funny to listen to Keir Starmer talk about free speech while they're actually jailing record numbers of people for posts online, far more than a country like Russia, which you think would be well over what the UK jails. But it's very unfortunate. But yeah, that's kind of the modus operandi across the West, and they tried here in the United States over and over again, but it never seems to stick because we have such a strong gun culture, because we have such a strong Second Amendment that every time there is some kind of very, very unfortunate incident, it always gets brought up. Well, just get rid of the AR-15s, ban firearms, more restrictive laws, that'll fix everything. No, like when it comes to school shootings, there's a reason why these things happen. They happen because we have built a nihilistic culture filled with depressed, murderous people that are lashing out at God because they see no meaning in life. That is why school shootings happen. But instead of addressing that, instead of trying to rebuild the foundations of society that used to be fairly healthy, because the United States used to be kind of a wild place. Back in the 50s and 60s, like people brought guns to school in their truck. People had shotguns sitting in their trucks. You could actually buy, and this was, I think, back in the 20s and 30s, you could buy a machine gun from a hardware store catalog. And besides crime, with organized crime and bootleggers and whatnot, people weren't shooting up schools. You had a much healthier society. And instead of actually addressing those issues because they don't believe religion and tradition and culture and stable families actually create a better society, they don't want to address those problems. They just think, well, we can just legislate our way out of this, just pass more restrictive laws. I think deep down they actually do assume that human beings, like, this is our default nature of being just a bunch of murderous lunatics, and we just need everything wrapped in duct tape and told what to do to stop. But there's a lot more to running a healthy society than simply just legislating for every single contingency and every possible bad thing that might happen. The land acknowledgement thing in Australia and New Zealand is crazy. What's the land acknowledgement thing? Could you let me know what that is? I'm not familiar with it. It's used for some future reason. And yeah, it is cringe. I agree with you. But yeah, definitely let me know what the land acknowledgement thing is. I'm curious. Is that something to do with the natives and Aborigine or Aboriginals, whatever you call them? I'm not sure. May have a better answer. What would that be? It doesn't have anything working here. Oh, okay. I got you. Now, do they use that as an excuse to possibly confiscate land? Is that something used for, I guess, social justice? I'm just curious. Or something that could potentially be used to confiscate land from people and redistribute it as some kind of form of like justice to the natives? It's basically said before every game, right? What are you talking about exactly there? What are you referring to? APK? Yeah, I know in the United States we've talked about reparations and whatnot. We've never talked about like confiscating land for for natives. Now, I am somewhat sympathetic to the plight of our native population, so to speak. One of my ancestors actually is Cherokee Indian. This goes back. I'm like 1/20th Cherokee, maybe, if that. Like things could have been handled better with the natives, absolutely. I think much of what we're told about what happened is probably embellished. They did fight. We did actually fight wars with them, like actual wars, and they were defeated. And what are the consequences to those defeats? Well, you accept the terms of the victor. The victor decided to place them on reservations. It's a complicated, messy history. I don't really think changing the name of handing out plots of land is going to fix that. At some point, I guess if you're in the position that they're in, you have to be realistic about it, and it might be just best to move past it and carry on the traditions and culture that you would wish to carry on, but you can't turn back the clock and give half the country back. Sorry, it's not going to happen. It's just not a reasonable thing to ask for. Last independent thinker. What are you referring to exactly? Sorry, I just kind of lost track of that part of the conversation. You said it's happening to Europeans, not just in Europe and the UK, but around the world. Pales into comparison to what is happening now. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a absolute concerted efforts to, and it's kind of hard to deny, to drive the number of European peoples and European countries down. I think part of that has to do with the fact that our birth rates are so low. I mean, sure, that's probably by design as well, but these people care more about GDP and the economy than they do about actually preserving their own civilization in any kind of meaningful way. So all they really care about is having a warm body to do a job and to make kids at the end of the day. So I think that's part of it. It's not the only reason why they want mass immigration, but it also does help with voting. Once you make enough people citizens that are dependent on you, well, they'll vote for you in perpetuity. That's why our borders in the United States were wide open for a long time. Anybody with any kind of sense of politics, like anybody that's read Machiavelli or has any kind of sense of realism when it comes to politics, knew that's exactly what they were doing. That was the game. You open borders wide up, you import a bunch of people, you give them citizenship because you say there's no choice because there's so many, and guess what? They become new voters. And something like that is something that could potentially lead to a civil war. I think it's a really stupid way to try to maintain and hold on to power because you refuse to not double down on really stupid policy positions. The United States, the Democratic Party had it made. They could have won every election in perpetuity if they just did not accept the more extreme social stuff. If 90s Democrats would have stayed 90s Democrats, and they probably would hold almost every presidency since Clinton. I know Bush won. Let's be honest about who ran against them. But, if they had not abandoned the American working class and decided to open the borders and embrace things that should have stayed within the confines of the classrooms of really goofy college professors, then they wouldn't really have an issue, I think, winning elections. And, it's really funny when you see them, talk about, oh, we have to help the American worker. By the way, we also want amnesty for enough people to flip every single swing state in our favor. Have a nice day, American worker. Oh, by the way, these people weren't born here. Oh, sorry, American worker. We still have it back. It's absurd. So APK, I'm assuming you're also from the United States. I see your Betsy Ross there. What's something that you would like to talk about? Like an issue that a topic that you would like me to address in this live stream. I have a few more things I would like to talk about. I have about 10 more minutes, and I got to hop off here for the night. Appreciate you guys showing up. I don't really have a large audience yet. I think I'm up to 1,282 subscribers, which is great because I don't know if any of you guys realize this. I don't know if either one of you were subscribed to the old Nothing in particular. That's okay. We could just BS a little bit. This channel actually used to have some videos on it that had 100,000 views, 60, 70,000 views. Back in the day, I usually do like edgy social commentary, and I didn't show my face. It was just like an edited video, and it wasn't really my forte. Like, edgy social commentary isn't really my thing. Shocking an audience to get views isn't my thing. Like, it just wasn't. I didn't have fun doing it, so like I deleted the videos and abandoned the channel for a long time and just used it for personal things. And then I decided to come back and start a commentary channel again, but in a way that I actually enjoy talking about things that I actually like to talk about in a way that I like to talk about them. So I'm kind of rebuilding everything from scratch, unfortunately. So I do really appreciate that 2 people showed up here tonight. That's really awesome. I'm really hoping to get more. I'd like to do 1 to 2 live streams consistently, a few more videos a week would be fantastic. But, it's taking a while to get my channel back to where it once was. But I'm having fun doing it. And I actually enjoy doing this kind of content now and talking about the things I'm talking about. I will say that few conquered people have it as good as the Native Americans on the reservations. Good point, because many conquered people have nothing left after they're conquered. They're either exterminated, enslaved, or forcefully assimilated. If you look at history, it's not very kind to the vanquished. Now, some civilizations have been more kind than others. Interesting thing about the Mongols, if you didn't resist the Mongols, they generally left you alone, left you to your own devices, so long as you paid taxes and gave them men when they needed. But most people that are conquered, don't really end up in a great place after they're conquered. And there are many issues within Native American communities that I would say are probably also of their own problems of their own making. Unfortunately, but history is messy. What can you do? It's not perfect. I mean, you can't take every single grievance from any people throughout history and then just write it in some way that it destabilizes the entire civilization they're actually living in now. I'm pretty sure that a lot of Native Americans would find it very inconvenient if the United States collapsed. There's a lot of things that they hold dear they probably wouldn't be able to hold dear anymore because there would be no infrastructure left to support them. So be careful what you wish for. Yeah, I mean, the reservations aren't fantastic, but like I said, history is messy. Things are complicated. There's no quick solution or easy fix to things like that. They fought a war against conquerors from Europe and they lost. This idea that they were just wholesale exterminated, like it was some massive genocide. I don't buy that. Unfortunately, disease did claim a lot of Native American lives, which when you have two people groups separated by a massive ocean that come into contact with each other, one of those groups is going to be susceptible to diseases they've never had. It's unfortunate. And also fighting a war in that, process, it's not good. It's not pretty, but it's an unfortunate reality of history. What can you do? So APK, you looking forward to Christmas, man? It's coming up here in a couple of days now, 5 days. I got my tree up here in the rec room, and I got some gifts on the table back there. I got to hide from the rest of my family up here in the man cave until Christmas morning. My daughter doesn't come up here, so I can hide her presents up here. Yeah, that's what I like to hear, man. Merry Christmas. And that's another thing in America that I think is sad to see decline. Christmas has always been something that's been overly commercialized for the last 50 or 60 years, but now I think to a lot of people it doesn't mean much of anything. I go to I'm an Orthodox Christian, so I go to liturgy Christmas morning, and funny that I mentioned it to my mom, and she seems kind of perplexed, like, you're going to church Christmas morning? Why? Don't you want to open up gifts? Like, no, there's a religious aspect to this holiday that's very important and has always been very important. We need to keep it important, or it's just some nihilistic holiday about giving people gifts and that's it. There's no deeper meaning behind it. Good, it should be. And it is the day that Christ was born on this earth. It is a very, very important day to a Christian, and it should always be an important day. Yeah, the gift giving is nice and decorating is nice. It's a good part of it, but I think going to church is actually more important than opening your presents. The presents can wait. The family is going to go to church, and we're going to know why we're celebrating this day, and then we'll come home and we'll be thankful and we'll open our presents. And I think us as Americans, what we should really do is make a concerted effort to bring that back to the forefront as best we can. I know people have been trying it for a long time, but I think what really helps is we do our best to live it with our families, to make our families more willing to look at the holidays like this in that kind of manner, not just something where, oh, look, it's Santa Claus, we get some presents, or it's Easter, oh, look, we can have the Easter egg hunt. Christianity is very important to the social fabric of the United States. And yes, I know the United States is filled up with literally every denomination is here. Like, I'm an Orthodox Christian. We're a pretty small minority here in the United States. Christians. Catholics are Christians, Protestants are Christians, most of them. I think it's very important for the social fabric of this country that we celebrate Christmas for the right reason and really make sure that we promote that to kind of reinforce that cultural pillar. And this is one of the things that will help improve our country is if enough people, again, start filling in the cracks in those supports and making them strong again. But anyways, I am going to jump off here for the night. I hope you guys have a good one. I've got some things to do with my family, and I have church in the morning. I'll be back. Should be Tuesday evening with another video, and then over the weekend I am going to do another live stream. I actually might do a live stream tomorrow too if I get time, and I'll let everybody know if I'm able. But for sure, I will be doing another live stream next weekend. And well, take care. God bless, guys. Yeah, take it easy, Last Independent Thinker. Really appreciate you coming by. You too, APK. Have a great night, and yeah, I'll see you next time too, buddy. Take it easy.